Hello, and welcome to the East Africa Business Podcast. I'm Sam Floy, and I'm here on the continent to learn about the emerging business scene. I'll be interviewing startups, investors, and organisations who are all playing their part in helping the region develop and grow. And in doing this podcast, I'll be sharing with you the things I learned along the way. Tea is a product that has a strong industrial base in East Africa. It's been going for years, meaning that many companies have emerged and there's a pretty competitive landscape. In this episode, I speak with Toby, Operations Manager of Chai Tausi in Tanzania. We discuss the supply and sales network that they have in place, the best conditions for growing tea across the region, and the considerations when it comes to making their blend. I've spoken to a lot of quite techie companies on my tour in East Africa, but this is a proper old school business that we chat about. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Without any further ado, here is Toby. Cool, so I'm here today with Toby from Chai Tausi. Toby, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. Hi, I'm Toby, and I'm currently Operations and Logistics Manager for Chai Tausi, which is a tea packing company based out of northern Tanzania, where we basically blend and pack raw tea to sell in the local markets within Tanzania, with plans to start exporting to other markets around Africa. So we buy all our tea from Tanzania, have it sent up to Arusha where it's packed in one of our processing plants, and then from there we distribute around the country for all over the country, depending on what tea is sold and what kind of tea is sold, and what market it is, it depends on our sales for those oncoming months, etc.
Cool. So when did it start?
Chai Tausi started up in 2014, I think. I've only been here for just over a year now, and the company was really set up in Dar es Salaam. However, due to increasing rent costs and large amounts of traffic, we thought it was more sensible to move the processing plant up to Arusha, where operating costs are much cheaper, labour costs are cheaper, so we've been going for now just over 2 years.
Solid. Okay. And so I've got it right. You sort of aggregate tea from all across the country, and then process it here, stick it in tea bags, and then ship it out. And then do you sort of then send it back out across the country?
Yes. So basically, we get our tea from one specific area of the country, mainly a place called Tukuyu, from Waklima Tea Company, which is a sister company to ours, where we have a deal in place which guarantees us certain amounts of tea every month. But also, if we need more tea, we will use other producers within southern Tanzania.
And why did you choose the one company? Why is that a particularly good place to grow tea in Tanzania?
Yes, I mean Tukuyu is probably the best area to be growing tea in Tanzania. Okay. It has the best rainfall, great altitude, and also being a sister company to ours, we can guarantee that tea a lot better than other companies where we're unsure of the quality and whether they can produce on time, etc.
Okay. So is this sort of tea? Is it plantation? Do you call it plantation? Is it tea plantation?
Yes.
Well, it's not tea farm. It's tea plantation.
Well, we have plantation. A lot of smallholder tea, which is basically we're buying the tea off a lot of smallholders within the tea plantation. So it's their land, their tea, and they sell it to us, essentially.
Cool. Okay. And so is that do you harvest the tea or do you cut it?
Yes, you pick it.
Pick it, okay.
Picking.
And can it be picked throughout the year? Or
yes, it can do, but it's better to pick it at a certain time, especially after rainfall, where the best quality tea starts to grow. But it can be picked throughout the year, yes.
So does that mean that you're getting sort of peaks and troughs in supply, or are you getting?
Yes, you can do. So at the moment there is a slight drought, and they're struggling to produce enough tea at the moment. But when the rains come in this month, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
That will come back up. But yeah, you do see a general, depending on when the rains are, you'll see increases and decreases in production.
And what's the consequence of that for Chai Tausi?
Well, that means there's not generally a decrease in price. It's just we'll just get a small supply of tea that month. So for us, that means basically our production is much lower. And so, I mean, that will affect sales, not generally in that month. It'll be the next month when, because we'll normally ship tea from the month produced the month before. And so it will, so for instance, if we receive less tea in November, December, we'll see a slump in sales because our production from November is much lower.
Okay. Is tea the sort of product that you can like stockpile, or does it have to sort of sell it?
You can stockpile. It's basically got about a shelf life of 3 years, give or take, depending on the grade. But you can do stockpiling. We do, so we'll know when the dry seasons are, and we'll generally buy a lot more tea to compensate for less production when there's a drought and stuff. But it is hard to predict. The rainy seasons aren't set in stone, so we can never really know. And we're operating on quite a tight cash flow, so it is quite hard to buy, make extra tea above our production limit at the moment.
Is there any way of if the sort of critical factor is rainfall? Is there a way of irrigating?
Yes, you can irrigate. It makes costs a lot higher. So generally, you want to be in an area where there is that rainfall. And so, I mean, you have irrigation. You need a lot of water. You can only do so much with it if you want to keep costs down. And tea is very competitive on the international market, which is what our sister company does mainly, is to sell abroad.
See.
And so you really have to make sure your costs are low to compete internationally, especially with countries like Kenya and Rwanda, where the tea quality is a lot better and production is much higher.
See. And so is it the geographical factors which mean that Rwanda and Kenya?
Yes, ultimately, yes. There's a lot more. I mean, Kenya, obviously, a history with tea. There's a lot more investment in tea there, and a lot more history with tea in Kenya than Tanzania. So generally, they know how to produce it better, and they've had a lot more time producing it. A lot more area of it is produced compared to Tanzania, which is much, much smaller. And also, as you say, geographical factors do play a large part. So Rwanda, they've probably got the best tea in East Africa, and that's purely because of its altitude and location. Its production quantity is much lower than Kenya, let's say, but quality is probably better, purely because of location. Kenya more so because of, I would say, time invested in tea and history of tea in Kenya. And they just know what they're doing a lot better than, let's say, Tanzania. And also Kenya, the rainfall is a lot better up in its highlands, and it's more consistent than it is down in southern Tanzania.
Yeah. So why don't you move to Kenya?
That's a good question, to be honest. But Kenya is pretty saturated in terms of production. The startup costs would be quite high. Getting investment for a new tea company where there will do lots would be tricky. It is a much more competitive market there. Here it's relatively much smaller. It's much easier to operate in that sense. Competition is a lot lower. Costs are actually a lot lower. And so, if we can make it work here, then great. We can still sell our tea on the international market. Our price we get for it's a bit lower. it's the opportunity in Tanzania is here definitely. Yeah. It's just, it's just unfortunately it's just not the same.
And so no ordering of the tea that is consumed within Tanzania. Yeah. How much of it is grown here?
I'd say I'm not 100% sure. But the majority is definitely. Okay. There is quite a lot of Kenyan tea here, but packed tea. So it's already been packed in Kenya, and then it will be exported here. Okay. But it's slightly more expensive, very good quality, slightly more expensive. And generally, Tanzanians will look for the cheapest option, really. Sure. And I mean that's a big factor for us as price. Is if we can be really competitive with our pricing, that will really help us establish ourselves much more so in Tanzania. And Kenyan tea wouldn't really see an opportunity here for that. There's too much competition within the Tanzanian market anyway, and they can make enough sales in Kenya alone. There's no need to really invest money into selling here.
Okay. Who is the typical Tanzanian tea drinker? Is it something that everyone has?
Everyone, yeah, it's huge. It's a very huge part of the culture here. They drink a lot of tea, and it's a very sociable thing to do here. And they brew it very in a much different way to your English cup of tea. Basically, they brew all with milk, sugar, and tea from and boil it up. So it's all boiled and brewed together in a big pot. So they can and very sugary.
And is this the sort of thing? Are people having it for breakfast? Are they having it?
They're having it throughout the day generally. Mornings are obviously, I think, much more of a thing, much more of a tea drinking time. And they drink it with lots of bread, dumping the bread, and that's basically their breakfast. Mm-hmm. And then in the afternoon, it's probably less so, but they'll drink tea whenever really.
Cool. And you sort of hinted on it before, but what are the main factors in differentiating quality? So when you say that one tea is sort of a better quality,
yes.
What are the
so it's all down to tasting, and you normally have. So for instance, at our factory, we have our factory manager. He's an expert in tea tasting. So it's all about aroma, color, and taste really, and also the fine grade. You have a look at that and see its kind of general consistency. And so David, our factory manager, he will, with every kind of individual invoice of tea, he will taste that and check its quality and determine a reasonable blend to make from that. And so every morning he'll be tasting tea for all those factors, and then try maximize quality and cost really from that tasting. But generally what you have is a whole different range of grades of tea. You have high grades and medium grades and lower grades. And so, your high grades will fetch, you can get up to $5 maybe for a really good high grade tea. And that's just an individual grade. It all kind of looks the same. And then, it goes all the way down to, our cheapest grade of tea we buy goes down to about 78 cents, I think. Okay. And what you want to do is those cheaper grades, obviously, much cheaper, but don't taste nothing like as well, and they don't blend very well. They don't brew very well. They're generally much dustier, much finer, stringier tea. But what's great is you can, so you'll mix that with some much higher grades of tea. And that's the whole point of a blend really, is to, try and blend the best tea, but make it as cheap as possible. Okay. So we'll mix lots of cheap blends with some expensive blends. Because if we were selling expensive blends, our price would be way too high for this market. So we have to mix with much cheaper grades, blend them together in our blending machines, and hopefully come out with a tea. Well, we do come out with a tea which is best quality for the cheapest cost we can. And it does vary. Tea prices do change. So we have to, and part of my job really is to work out how we can, maximize our quality and get the best price for that. Reduce costs as much as possible.
So each blend is unique?
Essentially, we do have a kind of a set table, a blending table. So for each, because we sell 3 different types of products. We sell a Rwanda blend, a Mufindi blend, and a Tanzania blend. And so for each of those 3 blends, we have a set kind of blending table, blending sheet for. So we'll have 20% of one grade set in stone, 20% of another, 15% of another, etc., etc. And that's kind of just a guide to kind of stick to, because for that will be a very good quality tea and you can fetch a good price for that. And it'll be cheap to produce. So we have those guidelines, but if one grade of tea is not so, let's say our high grade tea is actually not tasting that well, there's something wrong with that invoice, we'll have to adapt that blend slightly. And then, or if we're running out of one grade of tea, because of the drought they couldn't produce it so much, we'll have to adapt it again. So it does change, but there is a general kind of guideline for each one, and we'll change that maybe every few months depending on the tea price, the quantity of tea. And so it's basically for our factory manager David to just have an idea of what to use each day, or what to blend each day. And so within our 3 blends, we have the Rwanda, which is the high quality tea. So we use a lot more primary grades for that. In that blend, and we sell it for a high price, obviously. And that's got a big market up here in Arusha. Still, I'm not sure why, but they seem to prefer it. And then our other blend is called Mufindi, which is a much cheaper blend. And that's obviously a lot of secondary grades in there. Sold at a much cheaper price. And that's sold mainly on the coast, actually. We get good sales of that on the coast. And then finally, Tangawizi is basically it's a ginger tea and masala tea, which is a mixture of primary, secondary grades with spices in the mix. It's actually a very nice tea. And they like that on the coast as well. And it's a very strong kind of spicy tea, which you have without milk. Based out of India, I think. Very expensive to produce the spices, unfortunately, so we've got to be quite careful selling that tea. Otherwise we can lose quite a lot of money on it. But it sells very, very well. I really like it.
So it's every day this decision is made of what the blend is going to be?
Basically, yes. I mean, let me think. So generally David's in charge of the blend. I oversee it. And so he'll do his tasting and I'll say, okay, we need to produce this, and this week based on current demand and current and sales from the beginning. This is what we need. And he will say, okay, fine, no problem, I'll put the blend together. And so he will decide on the blend, but I'll be checking it every day. I'll be chatting with him and he'll send me these blend sheets, which basically show all the ratios of tea he's been using for that blend. And if I think it's too high and he's using too high on one, then he'll start to cut down on that for the next blend, or he will increase that blend but will change the ratios. So it makes it more economical for us. But generally it works quite well. He knows he's very good at what he's doing. It's just, sometimes he's sometimes a bit delayed. Let's say if the price has gone up and he's unsure, he can, you sometimes use too much of one. But generally speaking, it's quite a good system we have in place.
Nice. And is this happening Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday?
This is Monday to Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah. And Saturday generally is a half day, but if we need some, if we've got a lot of orders that month, we'll put them on overtime and stuff. Monday to Friday, and so blending starts actually at about 7 in the morning, and finishes at 4. This is based because in Dar we used to, because of the heat, we had to start really early to avoid the heat, and then they finish a bit earlier. So we've kind of kept that up here, and they like that system. And so, basically, describe the factory. It's got a big storage in one area where we keep all the tea, all the packaging material. And then we'll decide on a blend. The tea will be picked up from the storage and taken upstairs. So we've got blending machines up in a raised area of the factory where we'll put them through machines, and they kind of mix them with these big drums and fans, and they'll mix all the teas together, and they'll filter downstairs to the bottom part of the factory where it's filtered into the packing machines, which then basically seal up the tea into individual bags, and we'll workers down on the factory floor who collect all the sachets and boxes coming out of the machines and pack them into card boxes where we'll store them in another area and then ship them out when an order comes through or whatever.
Nice.
And it's basically a simplified version of how it's done.
Cool. And so this machinery, was it bought 2 years ago when the company started?
Yes. The machinery is all from India. So they make a lot of this, and it's not essentially tea machinery. Apart from the blending, the packaging machinery is quite a generic machinery where you can pack kind of anything with, as long as you just have to set it to your preferences, basically, of what you want to produce. All from India. I think generally most of them second hand. They're good quality machines, quite cheap. Spare parts.
Rough price? Are we like
for a machine?
Tens of thousands of dollars?
Yes,
yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Depending on the machine, but I'd say roughly that. And then because most of the packing machines here, so they're packing machines for all the local food produce they make here, from kind of crisps to just general food items. Yeah. So what's good about that is they're all Indian based, and so there's quite a lot of spare parts around here, which is can be quite a problem for us, because if you had a machine from the UK or somewhere else and you needed a spare part, it would take a while for it to come out here. But because most of the machines here are Indian, so there is a market for spare parts here, which we do need.
Nice.
Because machines do, they a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
So that is quite useful for us, actually.
And when you say the tea is shipped off, where is it shipped to?
Well, so depending on where, all over the country, really. At the moment, we're mainly focusing on northern and western Tanzania.
And is this going to Tanzania? Is this going to a distributor or directly?
This is going. So what we have basically little depots all around the country where
which you own?
Yes, we rent all. Yeah. And we've got a tiny little office in there, and then we have a group of salespeople based out of those offices where they've got their own trucks. And so what we do is I'll get an email or a call saying, look, we're running a bit low on tea. We've got lots of orders in from our clients. Please, can we have this shipped out tomorrow or whatever?
Okay. And the clients are? Clients
are mainly wholesalers. We have used distributors before, which is great in terms of because they buy the tea directly from the factory, and then it's their problem to sell. It's not ours, and we get the cash up front. But they are quite unreliable. Sometimes they won't order any tea for 3 months or something. So you can't rely on them. You have to have your own salesman, kind of in the market, just selling, because that's much more of a constant sale. And so we have salesmen with their trucks, and they will go around the whole region area selling, and they've got their own kind of client base. So they've got their wholesalers, which will generally make consistent orders every month, and they basically just go around selling to them. It's pretty good. It can, generally sales can like this. You find that the more you sell 1 month, it will generally drop the next month, because everyone's got their tea and they're selling. All the wholesalers and retailers, they've bought their tea and they're selling, so they don't really need the tea for the next month because they've got enough. It's basically just trying to smooth it out really, and the system in place at the moment works pretty well. We do quite a lot of promotional stuff on all the items. So if a wholesaler buys 100 cartons, we generally give them a carton for free, so just to provide incentive.
How big is a carton?
So a carton generally we have different. So we have all our different blends. So our 3 blends, we produce on average 4 to 5 different sizes of packed tea. So we have a 3 gram, a 10 gram, a 50 gram, and a 100 gram. And these are just sizes of the packed tea that we sell individually. And so within each, 3 gram will be sold in a 1.5 kilo carton. Your 10 gram will be a 2.4 kilo. Your 10 gram will be a 2.4 kilo carton, and 50 gram will be a 3 kilo carton. So generally, depending on what size they want, depends on the size of the carton, but it's between 1.5 kilos and 3 kilos for a carton.
Is there anything else that you've sort of seen affects sales? So is it quite independent, or are there other factors which are?
Yes, so there are quite a lot of factors definitely in sales. Obviously, the big one here is income. We find that is, and the problem is, so people, obviously income here is very low, and so huge opportunity costs when they're buying their goods, and so we find we're indirect competitors to the kind of the phone markets and stuff. So if people are spending more on phones, they'll generally spend less on tea. So and if income's lower, we'll see a big decline in sales. Also, I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but weather as well. So up here it's much colder, and it gets colder at certain times of the year, and when it is colder, people drink a lot more tea, so we'll see an increase then.
Is iced tea a thing?
No, not yet. No, they like their normal stuff. And also sugar. They have a lot of sugar in there. In their tea.
Yeah.
There was a sugar shortage in the country in March, which saw a huge decline in sales. Which was actually quite remarkable, because if no sugar, people won't drink tea without sugar. So those are just some of the factors. I mean, there are quite a lot. And then competitive pricing affects our sales a lot as well. So we have to be quite careful and be quite observant of our competitors and how they're pricing and how they're, what their marketing strategies are and stuff. But what we generally find is that the more established you are in a certain area of the market, the less you have to worry about the competitors. So people generally in a certain area will be quite picky and choosy, and they will choose, let's say in Tanga, which is quite a big market for us at the moment. They don't generally, no one really wants to buy any from the competitors. They're quite happy with us. I mean, they can be quite fickle. If we don't push enough, they'll flip and switch completely to our competitors or whatever. So we have to be careful. But once you establish yourself, you've got a very strong footing in that market. Yeah.
Cool. So we'll just do a couple more questions.
Okay. Yeah.
So you say that it's mainly Tanzania, but you're thinking of also going to other countries soon.
Yes.
What's the sort of how have you approached doing this?
Basically, there's always, because we have struggled with sales in Tanzania, and so it's been within our interest to look at other markets. Obviously, the Kenyan market's too strong; we would never get in there. And so we've kind of looked, and obviously through my boss Nicole, who knows Africa very well, we've kind of just slightly researched the markets in other countries, and seen if their tea prices, tea quality, and whether they're producing themselves, because that's quite a big factor. If tea's being produced in that country, then it's actually quite tricky to get into that market, because obviously their costs of producing in their own country will be a lot lower than us trying to export and push there. We've looked into Congo recently, and that looks very promising. They don't really produce their own tea. It's all imported pretty much, which obviously makes the price much higher locally. And so that for us is quite a big factor that tells us that we can do this as well. And if we can out compete the other importers, then that we could get very good sales there. But it will take a while. You have to find your distributor. You can't put your own salesman in, really. That's very costly, because you have to set up in another country. So ideally what you want is find a distributor, and they'll just take the teas off you. You don't have to worry about selling there, and they'll do all the sales, they'll do all the marketing for you, and it's within their interest, because they're paying quite a lot to import this tea as well. You've just got to make sure you find a good distributor who can, because if you find a bad one, they can ruin your brand of tea very quickly, and then you've lost that market. It's very tricky to get that back. And then just kind of work out how the other competitors are, what their pricing is, how they're importing it, who their main, distributors are, and everything. And so those are the main factors you've got to consider.
And just quickly, how many other competitors do you have in Tanzania?
There are lots in Tanzania. We compete directly with 3. They're probably about, I don't actually know, there are a lot of small ones, but let's say 6 or 7 big ones.
Okay.
We're probably 3 or 4 in terms of output, in terms of sales here. You've got Chai Bora, which is it's probably the biggest seller of tea here in terms of, and then Green Label is another big one who we compete with. And generally, so Chai Bora generally is quite big down south. Their packing plants are all in Dar. Not in Dar, based out of Dar. And so they kind of just control that market. And that's why we're not really in Dar at the moment, because they were one of the first tea packers in Tanzania, Chai Bora, and so they're very well established, which makes it quite tricky for us. So they're a very well established brand. They're they know a lot of they know all the good distributors. They know all the good sales routes, all the good big wholesalers. So they have made it tricky for us. Them and Green Label, who are very similar. It's just trying to basically. So we compete on price actually. We're much cheaper tea, and that's how we've been trying to undermine the bigger packers here. And they'll spend a lot more on marketing and stuff, a lot of advertising, and whilst we'll word of mouth and keep, and just have a very good price, competitive price, which does work actually. People obviously, because of income here, people will go for the cheaper tea generally.
Cool. And people listening at home, how can they sort of learn more about Chai Tausi? Do you have a website, or do you?
Yeah, we do. We've got a Facebook page which we haven't updated for a while, actually. There are articles on the web where we've interviewed with journalists and stuff, just wanting to know more. No real website as of the moment. There's no need, to be honest. Facebook, social medias can be quite useful, but the thing is, no one's, our market, our client base won't really have access to the internet, so there's no real need to waste money. Doing that.
Cool. Well, I'll look to link to a few of those in the show notes as well.
Okay.
Cool. Well, Toby, thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Sam.
Before we head, just a quick moment to say thank you for listening. You can see the show notes of this episode by heading to samfloy.com/podcast and then searching for the episode title. That's samfloy.com/podcast. Now, a few people have got in touch and have been asking about how this podcast came about. And well, it all started when I took a one-way flight to Rwanda to seek out business opportunities across the region. I'm now at the stage of formulating a bit of a plan of the business I want to go into, based on all of these podcast interviews, and we'll be keeping a record of what I get up to on my blog. And so if you're interested in being kept in the loop, you can sign up to the newsletter there. Again, it's samfloy.com. Also, if you have any questions, comments or feedback about the podcast, or indeed anything, please feel free to email me, podcast@samfloy.com, and I'd be very happy to chat. In any case, have a great week and speak to you soon.